Oh, running a little late. We'll get it going. All right, it's Monday. Definitely feels like some of us are going to have a case of the Mondays. Good morning. Illinois in Focus Daily. Just a tad moments late, but still at it live with you here on America's Talking Network. Get that podcast if you can't make the live show each and every weekday morning with Illinois in Focus. Just search it anywhere you get podcasts. And don't forget to get the headlines at thecentersquare.com. Coming up a little bit later on this morning, we'll talk live with State Senator Andrew Chesney. We'll get his reaction to the commutation of Rita Crundwell, who apparently had the largest embezzlement scheme that she was convicted of, and her sentence being commuted by President Joe Biden. But we also got to talk with Senator Chesney about the upcoming fall veto session, Illinois' economic prospects, especially as other states are continuing to grow. So we'll talk about that as well. But also, we got to get to the latest conversation on Illinois pensions. We talked about this a couple of times last week with the new report out showing pension debt continuing to grow. But Friday, there was a long committee hearing in an Illinois House committee dealing with enhancing pensions. So are we going about it in the right way? So we'll talk about that as well. Up next, though, we got Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson reacting to the incoming border czar for the Trump administration. We'll hear some of that from Friday. But also you've got the issue of the Chicago budget that, they came together and they didn't do anything on Friday and they postponed a meeting till today. So we'll talk a bit about that as well. It's all on the way here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning with America's Talking Network. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson remaining defiant in the face of possible deportation of non-citizen migrants in the city of Chicago, following Tom Homan saying that he's going to make Chicago his first stop. Welcome back. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. Happy Monday. I'm Greg Bishop. So we had Friday, the Chicago City Council. They're supposed to be passing a budget soon by the end of the year. If they don't, then they're going to have some significant problems. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But Tom Homan obviously getting some response from Mayor Johnson on Friday after he has been making the rounds, talking about how he's going to make Chicago first stop. Here he is on Fox over the weekend, I believe, on Friday, talking about the issue of Chicago and putting them on notice.
You will not only go after the illegal migrants, you may go after some mayors who aren't helping.
If they step over that line, they can sit back and watch us, which I find incredible. You don't want to take public safety threats out of your community and help us. But there are laws on the books that we will prosecute. It's 18 U.S.C. 111. Impeding a federal law enforcement officer is a felony. Title 8 United States Code 1324 III. If you knowingly conceal or harbor an illegal alien from ICE, that is a felony. When I was an agent a long time ago, I've arrested U.S. citizens for harboring an alien in their home or place of employment. If I can do it to a citizen, why can't I do it to a politician who's going to actively get in our way, prevent us from doing our job?
Yeah.
So Homan, again, making those comments on Fox News over the weekend. But what's Chicago doing about this? Here's the mayor, Brandon Johnson, on Friday, being asked about Tom Homan's comments.
Well, as I said from the very beginning, my responsibility in this moment is to invest and protect people. And we're going to continue to invest in people and protect people. We're going to protect people who see public education as a human right. We're going to protect people, of course, who are here, who have migrated or immigrated here to this city. We're going to protect people who believe in public housing has threatened. So whether it's education, whether it's immigration, whether it's housing, whether it's environment, all of the things that this current incoming administration has threatened, I'm going to continue to protect people of this city, working people, and we're going to continue to invest in them. Thank you for that.
It wasn't the only time he was asked
Good afternoon,
to
Mr. Mayor.
react
Good afternoon.
to Homan. He was asked later on in the news conference Friday about what he's going to do, in particular with Chicago possibly being the first place that the incoming Trump administration is going to start its deportation efforts.
Stop that.
Well, I mean, as far as his parameters, I mean, those are elements that I don't think are fully defined. I don't know if this is I don't really know what this position ultimately is. So, I'm not going to, try to prognosticate their authority. What I can say, though, is that we have a clear ordinance. This ordinance, which has been strengthened over time, but its origination is from Mayor Harold Washington, who understood that local law enforcement cooperating with ICE is not just simply about not cooperating. It's requiring local law enforcement to behave as federal agents. That is not how we engender confidence in policing in our communities. And furthermore, I just want to be very clear about this. The incoming administration's threat around immigration is dangerous and irresponsible. And this administration is threatening our economy. The proposal that he has on these tariffs, there are times when my budget director and I look at each other like, boy, when this budget process is over, we have to start having a conversation about the ramifications of tariffs that could have a tremendous detrimental impact on our local economy. That is a threat. President Trump wants to eliminate the Department of Education. That's a real threat to the people of this city. 87% of our public school system is made up of brown and black children. Working people who participate in public accommodations, that's what he's threatening. He doesn't believe in science, right? So his undermining of our efforts for environmental justice is a threat to our economy. It's a threat to our planet. And I guess all I'm simply saying, you all, is if there was just one threat coming from this administration, I could appreciate, this conversation around immigration, and, his view of the Department of Justice and what what he believes the role of the DOJ is, of using the Department of Justice to go after political enemies. I'm just saying, I'm offering to the people of Chicago, I'm going to stand up and protect the people of this city against every threat from this administration. And I hope the rest of the people in this room in the city of Chicago takes his threat as seriously as I do. Undermining public accommodations, going after undocumented people, it's a threat to our civility and to our democracy. I think it's a waste of effort and power when we have an opportunity to create more job opportunities for people who are coming out of jails and prison. He could focus there. We just had some young boys who were football champions here, and they represent the South Side very well, the South Side Vikings. And these are young boys who are playing a sport to give them an opportunity to get a free education. That's what he could be fighting for. That's what we're fighting for in the city. It's why enrollment in our community colleges continues to go up. And the number one registrant and enrollee are black young boys, black young men. So, I take his threat seriously, but I can tell you this one thing for sure. I'm going to stand up and protect the people of this city, and we're going to invest in the people of this city, and we're not going to allow the incoming administration to continue to sow seeds of division We're bringing people together, and our budget process is certainly emblematic of that. Thank you for that
again,
question.
the mayor really going on there for a good clip, touching on all of Trump's proposed policies. I mean, that was like 4 minutes or so of a response there. But again, the mayor holding the news conference to talk about the budget. And if they don't have a budget, they came in Friday to pass one, called for a recess. The mayor bolted out of the city council chambers, said they're going to come back Monday afternoon to this afternoon. But what if they don't have a budget by the end of the year? His budget director got up and said there's going to be some consequences.
Good afternoon, Annette Guzman, budget director. The mayor is absolutely right. We don't have continuing appropriation authority. We have a state statute that requires us to pass a budget by the end of this year, including if we are going to levy any property tax, whether it's the existing property tax that we have today, we have to have that in place by the end of this year, or we're not able to do things like pay our debt service, pay our pensions.
Oh, she's being corrected there.
Okay. And so we need to pass a budget by the end of this year.
And let's
one
get
follow-up
that
question for the mayor.
clarification.
Let our
Okay,
CFO expound.
Chief Financial Officer.
The only item we have a continuing appropriation on is our bond debt service. That is the only item.
So if they don't have a budget by the end of the month, the only thing they can do is pay their debts. Everything else, well, the mayor said it's not really going to be that pretty.
I know all of our alders are committed to doing that. No one wants to put the people of Chicago in that position, and it's very simple. If we don't have a budget, there's no appropriations line for the services that people rely on. If we're not in a position to pay the workers who help make sure this city runs, those services go away.
And, the mayor was also asked by our own Jim Talamonte in that news conference Friday about, efficiencies. In particular, would Johnson be willing to work with the Department of Government Efficiency being run by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy for the incoming Trump administration?
At the federal level, when...
Well, I don't know if you want to talk about ideas of the federal government budget, because that's a real bad example. But I think I know where you're going, but go ahead.
Would you be willing to potentially collaborate with this new Department of Government Efficiency when it becomes when it kicks in with the new administration?
Look, I mean, it's going to be necessary that every single level of government show up for working people. Like, people are very much concerned. I think Heather just asked this question around like layoffs, or somebody asked this question around layoffs and whether or not we'd be able to live with those. Finding ways in which government could be sharper and more efficient so that it delivers quicker and in a better way. We have to just keep in mind that it's people who ultimately do that. And that people serving in government, whether you're an alder, whether you are a train operator or work in streets and sanitation, these are people who live and love and adore this city. And so I absolutely believe that collaborating at every single level of government to make sure that people can afford their groceries, people can afford rent, that they have good paying jobs, access to good schools, that we have an environment that, doesn't further exacerbate, the health gap that exists between, spots in Inglewood versus spots in neighborhoods in Inglewood, or neighborhoods on the south side, rather, neighborhoods that are closer to downtown. So we're going to continue to collaborate with everyone who wishes to collaborate with us.
So there's the mayor talking about possibly working with Doge, but still being defiant on the issue of immigration. So we'll be watching that. Of course, the city meets again today. They've got a budget vote possible. We'll see what happens. The mayor's going to hold another news conference, so we'll obviously hear more of all of this. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. Up next, we'll talk with State Senator Andrew Chesney. Stay tuned. President Joe Biden not just pardoning his son Hunter for a 10-year stretch all the way back to 2014, but he also announced 1,500 people being commuted with 30 some odd people being pardoned. There was a woman who was pardoned in Illinois of a non-violent drug offense, but another pretty controversial commutation was made, as that list is pretty long, and one of those names that we've seen, Rita Crundwell. If you're not familiar with that, she apparently had the largest embezzlement conviction, $50+ million, from the city of Dixon. She was the comptroller there. She had her sentence commuted. Somebody reacting to that I definitely wanted to talk with, because we can get his reaction on a variety of things, is State Senator Andrew Chesney. He joins us now here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Senator, thanks for taking time. What's your response to the president commuting Crundwell's sentence here?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I mean, it's awful. We have a lot of rules and regulations that have been put in place after this as a result of her embezzlement. And, this has been at the expense of millions and millions of tax dollars that have been expended to protect the citizens from people like her. And this is rewarding bad behavior. And we think it's awful. It's disgusting. And really, it really makes people question, if people are held to two different standards, and if these elected officials and government employees and those that have been tasked with some of the most sensitive information or dollars, which are tax dollars, in the state or in the country, if they should be held to a same standard or a different standard. And I think that President Biden thinks they should be held to a different standard. And of course, we would disagree with that and think that everybody should be held to the same standard. And that was not the case here.
Well, Senator, you've got a lot of different things happening as the Biden administration wraps up, and you've got the incoming administration of President-elect Donald Trump getting ready to take office. Previous segment, we were just talking about Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson still being defiant, especially with Tom Homan. The Borders are saying he's going to start in Chicago. You've got the mayor of New York, who seems to be taking a totally different track here. What can be done by the State House to foster some kind of cooperation to go after violent non-citizen criminals?
Yeah, we need to eliminate the Trust Act. That was signed into law by then Governor Rauner. It did not have Republican support in the House or the Senate. This essentially does not allow local law enforcement to communicate with federal immigration authorities. And so we need to eliminate the Trust Act. And then, the New York City mayor correctly noted that they want criminal elements out of their communities, and they want to work with ICE in a very narrow way. Of course, my view would be as they work with ICE in a much greater, broader way, but it's certainly a start. But I mean, it probably shows why, the Mayor Johnson's approval rating is about 14%. Some people have said it's 18%, but it's some of the worst approval ratings in mayor history and in Chicago history. And he's just a widely unpopular mayor that has runaway spending, doesn't have his unions under control, and they can't get to yes on some of the very critical issues that are hurting Chicago, which ultimately will hurt many residents outside the city of Chicago, because Chicago's mistakes impact us all. And so it's awful policy. And then of course Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson, they do this Trump-proof victory lap around Illinois, where they want to essentially tell all the citizens, downstate, suburban, and city residents, that they're going to Trump-proof Illinois, and it's widely unpopular policy. We have a responsibility to know who is coming into our country. Everybody needs to come into this country legally, and the bad people need to go first, and then we'll start there. And that's not controversial positions. It's common sense, and it pulls widely throughout the state.
We're talking with State Senator Andrew Chesney here with Illinois in Focus Daily. And one of the things, obviously, you talked about the Trust Act, which prohibits local law enforcement, state law enforcement from even asking somebody's immigration status, let alone work with immigration enforcement officials from the feds to come in and get deportation holdings and detentions. But to that point, the detention aspect of here, several years ago, the legislature and the governor approved getting rid of ICE cooperation in county jails. in particular. Is that something else that needs to be addressed here, especially with the prospect of, I don't know, even dozens or, 20, 30, 40 people from Chicago being held? Will they be able to be held in Illinois?
Yeah, Greg, in my view, this is very simple. We have U.S. citizens that are here, of course, legally. We have a responsibility to take care of them first. Absolutely, unequivocally, them first. If we have any resources that are available after we take care of U.S. citizens, we can then look at taking care of legal residents second. However, criminal elements and illegal aliens need to be a very, very distant third, if at all. And in my view, we should not be providing the resources at all. However, with all that said, I don't know why the governor is digging in on very simple policies such as we need to get the criminal elements out of the state of Illinois and send them back to their home country or put them in prison. That is not controversial. The governor has used this as a political talking point, and you've seen him back off recently saying, well, maybe I'll talk to the president-elect and his cabinet regarding the criminal element, because they're polling this. They're discussing this in their communities, and this is widely unpopular policy that Governor Pritzker is imposing. And so this is not controversial. We need to put our resources behind the U.S. citizens and the residents of Illinois first, and not focus on those that have come into this country illegally.
State Senator Andrew Chesney with us here. A few other things I wanted to get your take on. Obviously, when you look at economic pictures across the country, the nation's economy doing, 4 some odd percent unemployment rate. Illinois is more than a full percentage point higher than the national average. You look at job creation. Illinois is, I think, in particular, just Chicago lost 600 jobs over the year. The governor was asked about this, looking at Illinois' sluggish economy compared to the rest of the country. He didn't really, talk about the economic policies other than tax credits and such. But what's going on here, and will there be a economic reckoning of sorts for Illinois if it doesn't lay the foundation for expanding economic growth?
Yeah, tax credits are just picking winners and losers, and it's crony capitalism that is wrong, right? We need to lower the tax base or lower the tax burden for all businesses collectively as a whole. And so Governor Pritzker loves to pick his winners and losers so he can do his ribbon cuttings, but that's only for the politically connected that get those tax credits. And so if you take a look at the adverse business climate that is present in Illinois, that coincides and that moves in the same vein of why we're having the sluggish job creation that we're having in Illinois, is because who in their right mind would want to build a business, create a business, start a business, or move to Illinois when you have Governor Pritzker wanting to have a supercharged sanctuary state? You're not going to have the types of businesses that want to move to Illinois to generate real economic growth. So as a consequence of his policies, you are now seeing that we fall behind all of our neighbors such as Iowa, Wisconsin, Indiana, Missouri, and others. And so what we need to do is we need to cut taxes, not raise taxes. We need to plug the $3.2 billion budget deficit through spending cuts. And we need to make it unequivocally clear we are not going to raise taxes under any circumstance in the state of Illinois in 2025. The businesses, Greg, they need to have tax certainty, and they need to know what the tax consequences are going to be in our state. And when you're looking down the barrel of a $3.2 billion budget deficit, and if you take a look at the history of what the Democrats have done since they've been in the majority party, they have almost historically always raised taxes and cut nothing.
Senator Andrew Chesney with us. You guys are off until January 2nd with a tentative date. That's lame duck session starting up. What kinds of warnings do you have for taxpayers when you guys come back to Springfield?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty frustrating when you talk to constituents in not only my district, throughout the state. The number one thing they're concerned about is the legislative the legislative bodies being in session. It's like, just don't go there and do anything worse. And that's pretty frustrating, because we should be going down to Springfield and helping people. And so I suspect you're going to see some political posturing. You're going to see Governor Pritzker want to Trump-proof Illinois, similar to how California and the rhetoric out of California and New York. And so Governor Pritzker clearly is trying to grab the national stage in his interest in running for president in 2028. And so I suspect you'll see a little bit of that. And then they'll call for some legislative corrections within bills. But by and large, I think they're going to talk about Trump proofing the state of Illinois, which essentially means just doubling down on sanctuary state policies that have crippled this state and spent billions and billions of tax dollars that should be spent towards legal residents and legal citizens that have been diverted to illegal activity. And I suspect that's what you're going to see.
Do you see possible gun control legislation coming up? We heard even on the House floor before you guys left, for fall veto session, State Representative Didich talking about Katrina's bill, wanting to get that passed. You got gun control groups also putting out messages about lost and stolen and such. Are those things possible?
Yeah, the gun grab groups are probably going to look at doing something. I mean, we're so restricted in the state of Illinois, and I suspect they're going to continue to try to fight to make that worse. While they want to strip the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens from our ability to lawfully possess firearms, they're going to continue to empower the criminal elements of the communities and not enforce federal law. And so, yeah, that's perhaps one thing they may discuss. The red flag laws and other items that you mentioned is certainly something of interest to them, but it will do nothing to reduce crime. And this is nothing to sell it to suburban limousine liberals that they're going to be safer because they've disarmed law-abiding citizens, and it will do nothing and have zero impact on the safety in their communities. What will have an impact on the safety in their communities is working with the incoming Trump administration to get the criminal activity out of our communities. And we'll start with the illegal immigrants that have not only siphoned off billions and billions of critical dollars and resources, but also have created a disruption within our communities.
State Senator Andrew Chesney, thank you so much for taking time with us live this morning with Illinois in Focus Daily, and we will definitely be talking again in the near future. Have a great Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you back here next year.
Hey, thanks so much, Greg, for having me on. Appreciate it.
All right, it's Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus Daily. While Illinois' pension debt increased over the past year, you've got a group of unions looking to enhance public sector employee pension benefits for those hired after 2011, but the overall cost is not known. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. On Friday, there was an hours-long hearing by the House Personnel and Pensions Committee where they discussed a plan that the We Are One coalition, a coalition of unions, Pat Devaney as a member of that, talking to the committee on what they're wanting to do with Tier 2 pensions. Again, it's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Last week, we talked pensions a couple of times. It's no secret Illinois has among the worst pension problem in the country, if not the worst. $144 billion unfunded pension liability. It's funded about 46%, while the funding ratios increased a little bit. So is the debt. And that's going to be, the debt will hold, according to projections from the Commission on Government Forecasting and Accountability, for like the next 8 years or so, before it actually starts going down, costing taxpayers in the state of Illinois increasingly more each year, from $11.5 billion to like $18.5 billion by 2045. So you've got all of these numbers, big numbers, right? But when they made pension reform in 2010, those hired after 2011 had fewer pension benefits, known as Tier 2. And now, 12 years later, they're looking at it and they're saying, oh my gosh, this isn't going to comport with Social Security standards. This could end up having the state face fines for not having enough pension benefits going to these Tier 2 employees. It's not just state employees, it's local government employees as well that are part of the overall pension law. So, you had these unions come over the past year saying we need to enhance Tier 2 benefits. We're having trouble recruiting. We're having trouble retaining. And you've got this Social Security issue. So a lot of conversation behind the scenes as to what this bill is going to look like. Pat Devaney with the We Are One Coalition laying out just a brief overview, hopefully not too technically complex, but here's Pat Devaney from Friday's Illinois House Personal and Pensions Committee. And let's hear it. And go. Here we are. Let me, doing this on the fly, as they like to say. Let's go ahead and let's do it live.
In general, our bill's comprehensive, and it aims to solve four major buckets of benefit deficiencies: age investing, final average salary, salary cap, and the cost of living adjustment, or that annual automatic increase that some people refer to it as. And you're going to hear about what our proposed solution is around that. The last thing, second to last thing that I'll mention is that the thing that's in the room that we have to get to, but unfortunately we're not provided with the information to have an in-depth conversation about it today, is what the cost of these proposed changes are going to be. It's going to, my understanding, that COGFA did their initial analysis on our proposal where they provided a summary of the different changes that were going to take place, but are currently engaged with an actuary trying to determine the impacts of the cost of this benefit. All I'll say to you on behalf of our coalition is we're eager also to find out exactly what these costs are, because we want any sort of solution to be fiscally responsible. We do not want to set the state back on what we saw in the previous gubernatorial administration, where the state is months behind in paying their bills, has no rainy day fund, isn't making a pension payment, and much less in addition to what's required as the current administration has. We stand ready to work with the leaders in the General Assembly and the governor's office to identify revenue to pay for our proposals when the costs are known. That's a little bit difficult to talk about in a vacuum because the state has many revenue needs and competing interests currently.
Including a projected $3 billion budget deficit for the next fiscal year, $4 billion the following year, and then $5 billion annual deficits for the following 3 years. Governor Pritzker said this could cost, $3 to $6 billion just to come in line with Social Security. But even that was very opaque. People weren't really clear on what exactly the standard was, how much it would cost Illinois to come into compliance with. And that's something that Republican State Representative Stephen Reich was concerned about in this overall conversation about enhancing Tier 2 benefits when we've got the worst unfunded liability in the country for all of Illinois' pensions. And the cost of this new proposal, nobody knows.
Actually paying for and what they're getting. And if they want increased benefits, they're going to have to pay a certain amount maybe in increased costs, and we're going to have to make up the difference somewhere on the state level. But it gives us a number. It gives us something that we can talk about that isn't like $143 billion out here. And I think it gives the taxpayers, the people who are actually paying the bill, an understanding of what we are doing about this debt. Because this debt is hanging over us like the sword of Damocles, and it's never going to go away unless we do something about it, specifically dealing with the debt. I have my own ideas on it, but we're not going to go into them here.
So Reich went on to just address the issue of the unknowns in all of this. Separately, when I talked with Ted Dabrowski from Wire Points last week, we talked about Tier 2 pension enhancements while we're facing this $143.7 billion unfunded liability.
It's funny. We should be talking about how we cut the pension debt, how we figure out how to reform pensions so they're not so big. And we've talked a lot about how big some of these pensions are. But instead of doing that, right now our legislature is debating how much to increase benefits on tier 2. And and what's amazing about that is that there's some plans that want to increase benefits a lot, and that just absolutely ignores the taxpayer, or they just think the taxpayers are going to pay for it. And some of these tier 2 plans increase costs for taxpayers by billions, some as much as 80 billion. And so we're not going to fix Illinois until we fire a bunch of those politicians who refuse to talk about pension reform. We need a constitutional amendment, so we need to get that on the ballot. We need to let the public vote on it, and then assuming that we get a pass on that, we need to lower pensions and create a new retirement system going forward.
So again, the idea that some have at the State House is change the Constitution, put that question up to voters, see if they're down with this idea. But there's been no political will to even broach that idea by the Democratic majority. So while you had unions to a House committee talk about the support they have for enhancing Tier 2 benefits, you had a collection of municipal leaders with a group that would address the committee as well.
Then we have Mark Fowler, Executive Director for the Northwest Municipal Conference.
So Mark Fowler got up to address the committee, and just real briefly here, some of what he had to say.
While we recognize the need for legislators to respond to concerns with state pension systems, applying any of the previously introduced legislation to municipal pension systems, namely police, fire, and IMRF, threatens to undermine the stability of these pension funds at the expense of local taxpayers.
So obviously not something that's just impacting state employees, but local employees, police, fire, the run-of-the-mill IMRF members, Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund members. This is an ongoing issue. I've been reporting on this for 10 plus years. We'll continue to report on it because the Illinois taxpayer definitely on the hook for a lot of this. So how much is it going to cost? And what are the economic consequences? Stuff we'll continue to talk about. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus Daily. Started off with some technical issues, getting it launched right at 8 o'clock. Some people in the chat room saying there were some audio problems, others saying there wasn't. Another reason why, if you can't make the live show, you can get the podcast. That's recorded locally, no interruptions. Also, you can get segments of the show, recorded locally, no interruptions. Plus, you can get the headlines at thecentersquare.com, and don't forget also to follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air. Stuff we got going on this morning. 9 o'clock, House Revenue and Finance Committee, is going to be talking about sports facility funding and bringing equity into that. So we may hear more about that. We've got the city of Chicago meeting this afternoon to possibly vote on a budget. The mayor's going to hold a news conference there. Tomorrow, we've got the Electoral College for Illinois that's going to be casting their votes. But today, you've got the Secretary of State, Alexis Giannoulis, is going to be doing a bit of a preview on that. So we'll get to all of that today. And we'll talk about all of that and more tomorrow here with Illinois in Focus Daily. All right? Hit that bell on YouTube. Really helps out. Keeps you posted as well when this show goes live, but also when we put up news clips. So get all of that at America's Talking Network. I'm Greg Bishop. We'll talk to you guys sooner than later tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, right here with Illinois in Focus Daily.